today is actually a response to some of your responses to last week's episode or edition, if you will, in regards to promotion and relegation and how it really is a turning point in this country if and when the United States ever decides to employ the idea of going up and going down and actually putting some of these teams on the clock to make sure that they are getting their business right. So we make it about sporting merit, not how much money you got and how much money you're willing to just lose. If this is a write-off for you, thank you. We love your money, but you're not serious, are you? You really aren't. This is just a way for you to own something so you can give some of your kids or maybe your cousins or whatever, somebody in your family, a job. We don't want you, but we do want you. We appreciate you, but at the same time, we wish you would just understand that promotion and relegation is a thing, and it will eventually happen. But some of you don't think so, and some of you have decided to chime in. I'll start with Badger Off 32, at Badger Off 32. Obviously, you got a lot of time on your hands. You wrote me a book. You're an English guy, and you appreciate that the USL streams their games, and you can catch those games live or whenever you want in England, which is terrific. You have some pretty good ideas. You totally understand what promotion and relegation means, and I'm going to be in somewhat, I guess 85 to maybe 90% agreement with everything you said. There's no stakes in the United States. There just isn't. You look at what the game is, and it's just a form of entertainment. Now, if you want a form of entertainment, go watch the NBA. That stuff's great. Regardless, I have to be in agreement with you, and I think you get promotion and relegation. You understand how that all works. Now, here's a guy that doesn't agree with you at all. This is BBBZ. At BBBEZ. With EEZY. Hi, how are you? So you don't think promotion and relegation will work at all. And your opinion is that the European leagues actually aren't functioning well because they just aren't anything that is necessary to make compelling television. Okay, first of all, you're a fucking idiot. I'm going to respond to this, but to say that promotion and relegation will work, forget about here in this country. Just forget about that for a second and just realize that, yes, it does work. It does work. And if we have to quote all the people who have been engaged in this, whether they went down or they've experienced relegation, which I have as a player, and it's terrible, but it also forces that club to get its act together. We went down for a reason. For our inability to do our business right, we ended up subsequently having to play in a lower division and earn our way back. It's the best thing that ever happened to the club. The club could if you want to continue to just watch mediocrity at work, yeah, just there's 32 teams. There they are in the United States playing for what? Who cares? Doesn't matter. You win a trophy at the end. That's a fucking expensive trophy, by the way. It really is, because the TV money doesn't kick in, because there isn't any. And we'll get to the Apple deal later, which is completely falling apart, and it's not good. All right, so Jagwolf, 8079, you are kind of what I was just talking about. You think 32 teams is the answer, have promotion and relegation, break it into two groups of 16, and then just figure it out. Okay, great idea, but that's kind of like where we make it more confusing than it already is, and trust me, it's about as confusing as it already needs to be in this country. Simplifying it, actually having a system that has been proven to work for hundreds of years, which is promotion and relegation, is a better way. I'll get to that in a minute, how most of us think that you'll never be able to convince people who just dropped $500 million into a league that they wouldn't go for this, because why would they spend that much money if they thought that they could be kicked out if they didn't get their business right? That's called sports when it's supposed to matter. Now, I'm not saying that the rest of this stuff doesn't matter, but we do things very, very differently. All right, let me try and get to this one. Kalossit Alice, K-A-L-O-S-I-T. Looks like kind of sits a lot, but you had some ideas. You said the best way to implement the promotion relegation was just to have standards and control. Wow, man, I can't pronounce your name, but that is pretty much the way this works. Standards, holding people accountable for bad business. Coming in last every year, and say in the NBA, and you totally stink, you end up getting a couple of things right. Because you're so bad, the mechanisms are there to help you get better in the form of the best player playing in college will definitely be on the worst team when this season is over because you stunk again. And then you got like 2 or 3 years to figure it out. And people somehow buy into that. They think that that's a better way to go. The bigger problem here is people understanding that what is the absolute goal of Major League Soccer. Major League Soccer's goal is to make the soccer better. better through mechanisms like promotion and relegation that make sporting merit relevant. Okay? We got one more. Mr. Game Boy, 6261, thinks we should just do it like the Japanese do. It doesn't surprise me at all that Mr. Game Boy is telling me to do what the Japanese do. I don't know why. Half of my family's Japanese. My wife's half Japanese. My kids are a quarter Japanese, and Japanese like video games. So just saying, Game Boy, very appropriately named, but we're not going to do it like the Japanese. We're going to do it the way it should be done, and that is basically in line with the rest of the world outside of Japan. No offense. Lastly, I just want to say I appreciate most of you chiming in and having an opinion on this kind of thing. I look at it as a process of people understanding what promotion relegation is, what it means financially, and how, if and ever it is implemented in the United States, how that exactly would work. The biggest component of this is threefold, actually. You're going to have the appropriate schedule. That's a necessity. Right now, just so if you are unaware, in Major League Soccer, you have a very crazy schedule. You don't play everybody twice. You could play sometimes you play somebody 3 or 4 times in one season. Depends on how the playoff schedule lays itself out. But there is no home and away schedule. There is nothing that's simplistic about it. It's all over the place. I mean, it's going to force us to figure out, what the formula is and which team had the strength of schedule. It sounds very NFL to me, but it certainly makes it very difficult to figure out who's actually doing things right and who's doing things wrong. The only way to make it fair is for everybody to be on the same schedule. Everybody in there has to play against each team, once at home, once away, and now you can essentially say, this is fair. Everybody has had the exact same schedule. They have results to show that they either got it right or got it wrong, and they deserve to continue to play in the top division of football or not. Now, going back to that first one, really enjoying the fact that the USL is streaming its games. USL now has a deal with CBS, and that deal is actually very interesting because it illuminates another issue that's happening. When you look at other sports, the TV deal in our sport, essentially, when you look at other countries, the TV deal is essentially what is the basis of how you're going to keep this business alive. You receive a ton of money for being in the first division. Now, if you don't get it right and you end up in the second division, does that mean that you're not going to get as much money as the teams that were participating or are actually getting it right? Yes, that's what that means. In the NFL, for example, each team, before they even hit the button go, get $251 million. Now, that's what they tried to sell to us at Major League Soccer with the Apple deal, that it was going to be $250 million a year. Keep in mind, this is the part that people don't understand. It really isn't that much money. They said it was a $2.5 billion deal. It was for 10 years. Okay, that sounded great when Messi arrived and people actually started to subscribe. What happens when Messi goes away? What happens to the Apple deal? Well, I got news for you. It's already happening. MLS has put a tail between its legs, and they are running back to the networks because they are realizing they are not getting the kind of numbers that they promised. And Apple is kind of pissed off about that. They've never revealed what those numbers are like, and they were making a lot of assumptions, but the numbers don't add up. And a lot of the GMs and the ownership groups of these clubs are asking questions. Franchises are asking questions as to how do we make this better. Now, if you take it from the NFL model and that $251 million, it isn't a marriage with one company, meaning Apple. Think about it. When you look up what team you want to watch on an NFL Sunday, they could be on CBS, they could be on Prime, they could be on Fox. The point is that they're on multiple networks, and that deal that has been done is to the best interest of the actual product. So the NFL benefits from being on 6, 7, 8 networks at times. That is a big deal. And that, of course, equates to what? A lot more money and a lot more opportunity. When you're on multiple networks with everybody wanting a piece of the pie, who benefits the most? The NFL does, the ownership groups. What has happened in the past is we have kind of burned those bridges with the ESPNs and the Foxes of the world who are not willing to give us that much money for one reason and one reason only. It's not compelling television. Promotion and relegation, and the idea that what USL is doing, and now that they have Division I status, that you might have to mesh these two. They have to come together. And when they come together, everything at that point will be based on one thing and one thing only: sporting merit. And when that is the case, the best teams who are competing with, to our point of some of the people who have chimed in that I responded to, there's something at stake now. Everything is at stake. And if you don't think that that makes the soccer better, you're just stupid. The soccer needs to get better. It will get better eventually if and when these two Division I's decide to work together. I'm going to dream here. And my greatest dream is that USL recognizes the situation that they are in, recognizes that they are actually counterproductive if they're just going to pick a fight with a single entity which has occupied 30 cities simply because of the density of how many people live there. And the idea is to kill everybody else. So the Louisvilles of the world. Sorry, guys, I know that's not the biggest market, but New Mexico isn't the biggest market. Vegas isn't the biggest market. Phoenix isn't either. Well, Phoenix is pretty big. But all these teams, Tulsa, who actually could get their act together and could have the best team in the country playing in Division I soccer. If the problem was always, hey, we can't include those guys. We can't do the Open Cup because what happens if we get beat by a Division II team? That's bad. The perception would be horrible. People wouldn't believe in what we're selling. I got news for you. People don't believe in what you're selling already. You've been lying to us for too long. David Beckham, $250 million contract, made $6.5 million a year. It's actually something you can look up. Just saying. So when you throw the $2.5 billion deal at us, come on, we're not silly. And stop lying to us because we're actually smart enough to figure out that isn't the case. Especially when the $250 million last year with Messi's arrival, you spent $165 on production alone. Now you got to answer the question, where'd the money go? Well, you know where the money went, but all the ownership groups are saying, well, how come we didn't get what you promised? That's called a deal going south on you. Now, if I was Don Garber, there he goes, straight out of the plane. That's your only option. Now, before Don Garber paints himself into a corner again, and then his only option is to paint himself and just hope to blend in, the other option is to put these two together. CBS has done something really smart, but why wouldn't ABC, ESPN, jump on board with Fox? Why can't it be on all networks? The biggest lie and the biggest elephant in the room here is that Apple was never really intending to make this a 10-year deal. That was never the case. That's the way it was sold to you. And if you believe that, and even if you were one of the commentators who had to constantly tell me how great this deal is, well, ask me in about a year and we'll see how you feel about the Apple deal. But the biggest lie, I guess, in all of this is this was always for the NFL. You basically were the testing ground to see if it worked, if the bandwidth was going to be worth it, so that this could eventually be on the NFL. You basically were the front soldiers. You're down, you're gone. And you'll be a casualty of war, if you will, because the NFL was trying to figure out if this model works for them, not us. What does work for us is putting on as many networks as we possibly can to figure out how we can get the most exposure and the most marketing dollars for people who want, again, one thing and one thing only. TV that you want to watch, compelling television, compelling stories, teams that, oh my God, if they lose this game, they might have to go down a division. Let's face it, soccer fans, you're car crash washers. You are the looky-loos. You're the ones that are rubbernecking it because you want to see the car crash. That's what sports is, especially when it means something. Promotion and relegation is the answer. Whether you believe it now or not, I'll wait another 4 or 5 years, and then I'll do the I told you so. As for now, thank you for writing in. I love the responses. Not all of them, but I do love responding to idiots and people who are trying to get it right. We'll see you next time.